Remarkable people overcoming remarkable challenges with resilience, dedication, community, and grit. Listen as they share their stories of overcoming adversity. Open your eyes to what is genuinely possible for all of us. Authentic Adversity with host Chris Howe.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with a person that I've heard a lot about. We follow each other on social media. My wife tattoos him. She has nothing but great things to say. He's a restaurant manager. He's also a stay-at-home parent, which is a tireless job, and I commend you for that. He's got yeah, of course, man. He's coming up on 8 years sober. He's got a real interesting and unique story that I think is going to help a lot of people. So welcome, Josh Davis.
Hey, thanks, Chris, man. I'm excited to finally talk to you one-to-one, right? Like you said,
yeah.
We kind of know each other seemingly quite a bit, but have never actually spoke. Every once in a while, I'll pop by the tattoo shop and hope that maybe Chris is there, but he's a busy man, so.
Yeah, I know. It's a funny thing. Like I own part of the shop, but I'm there like once every 2 months. I do the same thing. Exactly. Which, it's, if you're married to a tattoo artist, you are the last person to get tattooed always. And I always laugh about that. People complain about wait times, and I'm like, listen, I own the shop and I wait the longest. So this episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast is brought to you and sponsored by Another Road Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. Another Road offers a client-centered recovery program tailored to every individual's circumstances. Their focus is to create a supportive, healing environment rather than a rigid, rule-based institution. Their dedicated commitment upholds the individual values respecting each person's desire for recovery. Another Road understands that every individual requires a unique and focused approach to their recovery. Certain modalities of treatment are introduced along with the tools necessary for each client. Located in a rural setting, their addiction treatment center for all genders provides the perfect setting for a transformative recovery experience and sense of belonging. The private residential treatment facility offers an unparalleled program with counselors that have in-depth knowledge based on varying years of experience in addiction. Another Road utilizes unique, individual-focused plans for recovery that address the complexities of drug addiction, alcoholism, and prescription medication misuse. They have a 65% success rate when clients follow their program. I know many people who have completed this program, and they have absolutely rave reviews. To learn more, visit anotherroad.ca. Generally, I try to talk about like growing up, what it was like for you, what happened, kind of the evolution to bring you to the point of addiction, and then we could talk about what brought you to that place where you decided that you couldn't live that way any longer, and you made a major change to your life, and how that works for you today. So
let's do it. Let's start at the beginning, I guess.
Perfect. So you grew up in Timmins, Ontario, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, way up north.
It's about 8 or 10 hours from here, depending on who's driving. And I come from a long line of drinkers, man. My grandfather, actually my paternal grandfather, he's passed away now, but he was one of the longest running AA members in Canadian history. Like he got sober when he was, I think, 18 or 19. He got kicked off the police force. For boozing, and then lived to be almost 100 and was sober the whole time. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then likewise, all of his kids have had addiction problems, mainly alcohol. My father was a special breed of them, and when I was 4, he was drinking at a birthday party, and he fell down 14 brick steps and landed on his head, and became permanently brain damaged for the rest of all of our lives, right? He'd never work again. At the beginning of his, right after following his accident, he was in a coma for a long time, and then when he came home, he was obviously different, but he came home with severe epilepsy. So he was having grand mal seizures regularly, which they need to medicate for. So anyways, by the end of it, his mental capacity, his verbal skills were that of a, like adolescent, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my parents, because of my dad's addiction, both drugs and alcohol, he would disappear for 4 days at a time, right?
Okay.
My parents got married pretty young. My mom, I think, was 19 or 20, had 3 kids by the time she was 25, 26. Anyways, they were going to divorce before my dad's accident because my mom had had enough.
Yeah.
And then he had his accident, and obviously it changed everything for everyone in the family. And my mom, having the heart that she does, she decided she's going to stick around and help everyone get used to the new way of living with my dad, right?
Wow. Okay.
And in the interim of that, she started a non-profit organization in Timmins for people with acquired brain injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And like 5 or 6 years went by, and my mom was offered a position here in the Niagara region.
Okay.
And again, right, they were anticipating splitting up, and obviously things didn't ameliorate over the period there. So someone offered her a position, and she took it. And me and my brothers moved out here, and my dad stayed in Timmins. And every summer or so, I would go see him until I got older and I got a job in a restaurant. And guess where it's easy to drink underage?
Yeah,
Restaurants,
exactly.
right? And alcohol is expensive, so I had to work all summer so I could afford the things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, so my father has his accident at a friend's house. It was a birthday party, and he didn't have a railing on his stairs, which is an insurance issue. And my father never working again, my parents decided that they had to do something, so they went after the insurance company and eventually win. But when we move here, I find out that the guy whose house my dad had his accident at lives here.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was my dad's best friend, right? You'll never guess. Rick lives in town. So my mom had to do an overnight one day. And I said, well, who's going to babysit us, like, overnight? My older brother's a few years older than me, so he could watch us during the day. But Rick lives in town. He's going to come watch you. And he never left. And he was my stepdad for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and he, too, suffered really badly with addiction and depression and anxiety. He also was disabled. He had a back problem. So he was on massive amounts of painkillers, which after a while didn't help.
Yeah.
So he needed something harder, and we didn't find these things out until he had passed away. He committed suicide in, I think, 2013. So.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Wow.
That suicide there is what really, really kicked things off for me. You know what I mean?
And so, at what age were you? What age were you when he took his life?
Yeah, I think I was 20. If I'm 8 years sober, and 36, I was about 26, 27 when he took his life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
jeez, that's tough.
Yeah. And it's weird, because you hear about these things in, like, if someone talks about it regularly, chances are they won't commit suicide, right? And he did talk about it regularly. And,
is that right?
Oh yeah, and he said it's something I'm gonna do, man. I can't live like this anymore. And I would say, well, you need to go talk to someone, right? Well, that doesn't help, this and that. And I ended up moving out and moving on with my life and getting older and grown up. And while I had a really good relationship with my mom, I didn't speak to my stepdad very much. And one day when I was at work, some random guy came into the kitchen and asked to speak to me. And he took me outside and he was like, I'm from the crisis center. This is what's happened.
Oh my goodness.
And
yeah, and this is the father figure that you've known for years now. And geez, so how does that feel when somebody talks about it and talks about it and talks about it, and then it actually comes to fruition like that? I mean,
yeah, it was very weird because it's you think, oh well, that makes sense, but you're also in disbelief,
Yeah,
because
I can imagine.
While me and him had a tumultuous relationship, didn't get along very well.
Right.
he was a very strong, very physically strong man, right? And very intimidating, very loud, very big, kind of scary. So when he did take his own life, I was like, that seems very out of character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And not to speak negatively about people with anxiety, depression who think that road, because I have those things, but it seemed out of character for him. You know, he grew up religious. He was very like, you know, this is what a man does kind of guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So when that happened, it was very strange, but I come from a home where I experienced lots of traumas as a kid, so I went right into protector mode, right? Okay. I didn't even let it phase me for a while because I had to look after my mom. My younger brother was a mess. You know, my wife, who then was my girlfriend, you know, she's experiencing this with me, so I gotta be the one who does this, and
right.
And that's I didn't show much, yeah.
Yeah. And so, are you at that point? I guess you're not seeking help with any of that stuff, right? You're just trying to sort of white knuckle through it and do what you can.
And I didn't even think beforehand, like, you know, I would have a few instances where I would think my drinking was maybe out of hand and maybe I would need to do something about it. But up until shortly after that, or even maybe a year after that, I didn't really understand what kind of problem I had. Okay. So before I would let my mom go back to her house, because my stepdad did it on their property, I told her, like, I got to go and check this out and make sure, right? Right. And it was late at night when the CSI team left, so they did not get everything, right? Okay. So I ended up with my uncle finishing up the cleanup, which in retrospect was a real bad idea.
Of course, yeah.
Cue the PTSD that I didn't really understand at the time, right?
Yeah.
So a year or so went by, and I was getting rough with the booze. I'm talking 60 ounces a day, straight liquor every day. I was hiding it everywhere. You know, I'm sure my wife, because we lived in a one-bedroom apartment, I'm sure she had an idea, but not to the extent. You know, she'd wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Why are you shaking?" I said, "It's freezing in here." When in actuality, I just hadn't had any liquor in 2 hours, right? And I was withdrawing. And then,
I mean, and that was your coping tool at that point, right?
Oh, yeah. I needed it.
And so as you're going through all that and you're hiding the liquor around the house and going through these sort of DTs and withdrawal symptoms, is there any point where you think to yourself where your grandfather's kind of tenure in AA pops in your mind and you said, well, maybe?
I thought about it all the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would stare at myself in the mirror in the bathroom, because that's where I would stash most of my little Mickeys, right? And I would tell myself, I fucking hate you. You are the worst, man. Like, why can't you get off of this? And then I'd start to feel sick, right? Okay, so I'm just going to drink today. I'm just going to get unsick today so I can get through today, because I have things I need to do. I was a very high-functioning alcoholic. I went to work every day, right?
Okay,
but I had liquor in my backpack, so I'd just go down to the bathroom and drink it and come back up. So, every day I'd go, dude, to get unsick and tomorrow you'll get straight. And then shortly after that, we got a call that my dad had passed away.
Okay.
And I'm like, fuck, well, now I got to go to the funeral, right? And what kind of guy would I be if I went to my dad's funeral pissed drunk?
Sure.
So I decided I was gonna dry out a little bit, and it was right around Christmas. And my wife had gone, again, not at the time, she wasn't my wife. She'd gone out to finish Christmas shopping, and I'd only had 7 shots of alcohol that morning. I had an alcoholic seizure and split my head open on our kitchen table, right down to the brain.
Oh my goodness! On the day of your dad's funeral?
No, this is like 4 days before my dad's funeral.
4 days before, okay.
So I think my dad's funeral was on like the 22nd of December, and I had my accident on the 18th.
Oh my goodness.
And so my wife comes home, you know, there's blood everywhere. I'm in just my underpants. Our dog is in it. And I get to the hospital, I wake up, and there's both of my brothers, because they were in town for my dad's funeral, my mom, my soon-to-be in-laws, and my wife staring at me, and I went, holy, like, maybe it is time.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and so
is that the aha moment there?
yeah, and so the interesting thing was is that my old man, when he had his accident, he cracked his head open in the exact same spot I did.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't a spiritual guy before that. You know, I didn't really do the whole serendipity thing. But
Yeah.
as you go through AA and you start to, you know, they talk a lot about God, but now it's more God as you understand Him, which works
Hmm.
better for me because I'm not
Yeah,
an up top God, right?
sure.
Um, and then I started to look at things like that, and now I maintain that my old man was in the fridge and he shoved me. And he went, dude,
Yeah.
get your head right. Otherwise, you're gonna end
Yeah,
up like me, and you're not gonna be able to raise your children like I wasn't. You're gonna have some
right,
other guy
right.
doing it, right?
Okay.
And the guy who raises your children might not be Chris Howe. He might be a jerk. You know what I mean?
I'll take that as a bit of a compliment.
That is a
That's
compliment. That's my point. I see you on the
yeah.
internet with that young gaffer, man. And I mean,
Uh,
to have an old man like that, that's something you can look up to, right? And that's what I wanted to be. I
yeah.
never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, but because I didn't have one, I always wanted to be a good dad and a good husband.
Hmm.
And I couldn't do that while drinking. I'm sure my wife would have left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Isn't
So,
it interesting though that we, you know, our intentions are one way, and but we just can't let go of that one thing, you know, that one attachment that we have, that would make our intentions truly be possible, and there's that one thing standing in the way, and we refuse. And like you said, you're doing the, well, just get well for today,
yeah, just
and
get
tomorrow
unsick,
I'll
man.
kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
It,
gotta
and
like I can't spend the whole day puking here, right? So let's
yeah,
drink, and then tomorrow when it's my day off, I can do that. But
right.
guess what? It's my day off. I don't want to feel shitty all day.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way it goes. It's the cycle is brutal. It really is. And I mean, and like you're saying, that's a cycle that a lot of drug addicts know, about, like getting sick and getting well, but it is very real for alcoholics as well. And
Yeah,
I think that people don't recognize that, you know, and our, as I said before, our intentions are never to hurt people or to hurt ourselves. Our
mm-mm.
intentions are to be that father figure, that, you know, the good employee, the good son, the good
Mm-hmm.
daughter, the good boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it may be. But we just can't, like, and we can't fathom a life
Yeah,
without this substance. And you know, it's it's such a it's such a shame that for a lot of us, we let that one thing get in the way of our pure intentions for so long until,
it's
you know,
amazing that a person can be so strong-willed and like in all other aspects of life. Like take you for
yeah,
example. All the life saving you did, right?
hmm,
Or
right,
do. But I can't do those things without this. This is my superpower, right?
yes,
This is how I get my strength.
right,
That personality that everyone loves, that life of the party, that guy who's quick with a joke and no one takes. He can say whatever he wants because no one gets offended. That's alcohol.
yeah,
That's not Josh. That's the booze. So I
that's
need it,
right.
right?
Yeah, and we trick ourselves to think that that's us at some point, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, it's really interesting that you say that. I mean, I think a lot of people need to hear that, right? Because it's our crutch for so many of us for so long, and we get so far away from our true nature as a
Hmm.
person, and then, you know, once we get sober, we have this sort of self-discovery journey to find out who we really are, and it's
Yeah.
really quite interesting.
I had forgotten who I was. I wasn't sure who I would be without liquor.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be boring. I didn't want my wife to go, this isn't the guy that I started with. You know what I mean? Now,
yes,
mind you, I wasn't like wicked into the liquor when we started dating, but it was still part of what we did, right? We were
right,
restaurant people. We were young cats. We'd go out and we'd drink.
yeah,
We have a good time. And I was
yeah,
worried that if I gave up the liquor, that I wouldn't be the same dude. And it
yeah,
actually did take me a little bit to start feeling like the same dude. Right? I was very
yeah,
quiet and like kind of withdrawn a little bit when I first got sober because there was a lot of shame coming through. Right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
I had hated myself for a long time and assumed everyone else did, but I didn't have to deal with it because of the liquor.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest deterrents to sober living, for people who are in active addiction, is that like, oh, I'm going to lose myself. And what am I going to be? Who am I going to be? Am I going to, like you said, am I going to be boring without
Yeah,
alcohol or
yeah,
drugs or whatever the substance may be? And are people going to like me? And all these fears keep us from making that step. And, and we don't realize at the time because we have no frame of reference to say,
yeah.
okay, like life as a recovering alcoholic or addict, or or recovered, however people want to put it,
Hmm.
can be way more exciting than and it absolutely is more fulfilling and
Yeah.
meaningful than
So,
life in active addiction.
yeah. My younger
Yeah.
brother, who's now passed away, he too had horrible addiction problems and a lot of mental health issues. We all of us had quite a few traumas growing up.
Yeah.
And I used to tell him after I got sober that nothing in my life is worse because I don't drink.
Right.
Whereas the opposite was not true. He would say stuff to me like, well, but one of his favorite things to do is fishing. Dude,
Yeah.
I don't want to go fishing without beers. You know how
Yeah.
boring that would be? Like, what a lame existence. I don't want to give up the liquor. I said, you don't understand. It's still fishing. Like, it's
Yeah.
really fun. Except now it's cheaper.
Sure.
You don't have to carry around all that liquor with you, and you're not going to be sick either tonight, tomorrow, or earlier today. You know what I mean? It is
Yeah,
the exact
absolutely.
same, just kind of like amped up. If you can handle the voices in your head.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be present in the moment for those things that we love, even when we are under the influence, they can be so much more fulfilling and meaningful, and worthwhile to be doing these things and actually practicing present time awareness and realizing that, like, I love this because I love the way I feel doing this. It makes me feel good about myself. And here I am doing something without my crutch of alcohol. And truly, I'm, for somebody who's fishing, like, I can be one with this activity. It's not me fishing and then the bottle.
And I mentioned to Joe the last time I saw her, I said, like, fishing, for me anyways, especially as I remember it as a kid and now as a sober person, isn't about catching fish, right?
Yeah.
It's about hanging out with people you care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, when are you that quiet? I don't know about you, but I always have music on or TV on or my phone in my
Yeah.
hands or two kids screaming in my ears, right? So when are you that quiet? I don't know. The only other time I am is when I'm getting tattooed. When
Right.
I have a moment to, I don't know, be contemplative, do a little bit of mindfulness.
Yes.
And I can't be mindful without also being distracted. Here comes the fishing rod, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
before we move on, I wanted to also say thank you so much. Josh gave
Don't worry about
gave
it,
my stepson a little tackle box full of fishing lures, and he was absolutely thrilled when he got that.
I love it.
He's
I love
lost
it.
a few of them already,
That's what they're for.
but he's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, this kid, that's his thing. He loves it, and to be able to be part of that with him is really
Yeah.
truly a blessing for me. And yeah, that gift, stuff like that, I mean, it really goes a long way. And that to see, I wish you could have seen the smile on his face when he received that.
You know what, man? Like, I pictured it up here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in my head, he went absolutely bananas. So it was great.
He did. Yeah. That's exactly how it was.
I found that in my sobriety, one of the things that makes me feel the best, right, is just pushing out kindness. And that may sound like a cliche, that may sound, like lame or whatever. And gift giving is one of them. I randomly give gifts all the time. Like, I'm not out spending money on big gifts for people, right? Like the thing I gave your boy, I have 9 tackle boxes. You know how often I get to go fishing? Not very often. So I took some pieces, I put it in a box. I was heading for a tattoo anyways. That made my day. And if it made his day, all the better, right?
And it also made our day, right? Like that, the gift kept giving.
It just trickles, right? And then you go out and you push out some kindness. Why not?
Yeah.
And I've thought about that in terms of a career as well as I've gotten sober. But I mean, when you have a young family and you already have spent so much time in a career, you can't just go back to school, right? So this is my way of doing it. I give out gifts every once in a while. I say over the top kind things. Now, coming from a guy who looks like me or you, sometimes it's perceived as sarcasm, but it's not.
No,
oh my
it's
God,
genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know when it's genuine, and I think that's a real big, that's a really big thing with people in recovery, and we start to realize that that giving, whether that giving comes in the form of material gifts, compliments, just a kind conversation, or like we're doing right now, sharing a story. This gives back so much more to us, right? This gift giving, in whatever form it may come in, the return on that is so huge because it's fulfilling, right?
I think it's the key to, I get a little scared in the world now, right? Because stuff is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then if you buy into conspiracy theories too, it gets even scarier. I think that's all it is, man. If everyone can just be a tad bit kinder, right?
Yeah.
And just give when they can, what they can, I think we'll be all right. But the issue is how do you get that across to everyone,
Yeah, I mean, we do what we can, right? That's the main thing, is that we're giving when we can. We're not so much of ourselves. You know what I mean? We're becoming generous in all areas of life, and we're losing that self-centeredness and selfishness that we've lived in for so long in active addiction. I think it's so important. And that only comes, I mean, it comes through a lot of lessons learned in recovery. And so take us there. What led you to the rooms of recovery? And you had mentioned earlier that there was a lot of traumas in your life. And what was the last day or the last days leading up to?
So, I mean, AA had been part of my life always. Like I said, my Papa Don was an AA alumni. You know what I mean? The amount of people he sponsored. He went to it before he got, too old to go, too old to drive. He went to 2 or 3 every week.
Is that
all
right?
the time?
Wow.
So, you grow up, you move on. After my stepdad had passed away, my drinking had gotten really bad, and I actually went to several randomly. My wife, I would every once in a while open up and go I might need to do something about this. I might need to get off this, because I had tried. Well, I'm not going to drink during the week, right? Only on the weekends. And then a few weeks in, because I'm an addict and I know how to manipulate, I had turned that into, no liquor during the week, but I was allowed to drink 2 beers during the week, a day. And then that quickly turned into, well, I don't get drunk off beer and it fills me up too quick anyway. So we'll just drink beer during the week and then only liquor on the weekend. And then again, it would snowball, right?
Those manipulations that we make.
I had mentioned it several times. And one time, right before my accident, I went to an AA meeting downtown St. Catharines. We were living there. And I also happened to have insomnia, which is another reason I love to drink so much, because you just drink until you fall asleep.
Right.
And I had been up all night drinking. It was, I think, 8 a.m. was the meeting, and I walked over because my wife was asleep and I was feeling ashamed of being up all night boozing. And I walked in, and honestly, I was very uncomfortable. Right? It was at a Salvation Army in, one of the poor spots of downtown St. Catharines. So, a lot of homeless people, a lot of drug addicts. And I mean, I wore a 3-piece suit to work at that time. You know what I mean? I would go and wait for the liquor store to open in a 3-piece suit surrounded by rummies, rummies. So I walked up to this people, our own perceptions of people. Here I am, probably as bad, if not worse than any of them, right? They're drinking a 40 of beer, and I'm rocking an entire 60 of liquor. So who's who, right? I just happen to have access to money at the time. Anyway, I walk in, and I admitted that, they do their thing, and I had been to some as a kid and some before. And I walked in and I admitted to them, they did their, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, grateful to be here. And they got to me and I went, I'm Josh. I am 99% sure I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was drinking liquor as I was walking up here. And they went, that's okay. And I went, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
That's okay with you? I thought for sure you guys would be livid with me that I'm like disrespecting the sanctity of what you guys are trying to do, right?
Right.
And they were like, no, man. Like, do you eventually want to quit drinking? I said, yeah, because I don't think I can sustain this forever, and I don't have an off switch. You know, I don't have a let's go out for a glass of wine. Why are you having a glass of wine if it's not going to put you to sleep eventually?
Exactly.
And they went, man, whenever you want, whenever you're ready, you come back. You can come back.
And you're in the right place.
Yeah, we got meetings all over the place. You come back to this one if you feel comfortable, or you go to another one, whatever. And then I had my accident, and obviously because of how severe my drinking was, I had to be medicated. Right? You and Hardcore had talked about it, and you mentioned it a little while earlier today that I don't think people realize how dangerous quitting alcohol can be. I certainly didn't. It is, as far as I know, and I don't want to speak out of school here, it's the only one that can kill you from quitting cold turkey, like just from your body shutting down, right? And that's what was happening to me. They say, I don't know what the enzymes, what the value represents, but they say your liquor enzyme should be anywhere between like 3 and 7, let's say, and mine were like 25.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't have a lot of time doing what I was doing to go.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
So I did a comprehensive plan with my family doctor, whom I didn't have at the time. But, you know, my mom pleaded with hers, you know, my son, I need you to see him. I never realized how much my drinking had affected her.
Yeah.
She didn't live with me. She didn't live with me. She didn't pay for my liquor. Every time I saw her, I was in good spirits, right? But here's her son following down the same path as her first husband. Anyway, so we came up with a plan, and he was like, oh, you should go to CASN.
Okay.
Which is the Center for Addiction. It's in St. Catharines.
Yeah.
And it was a great place. But
it is.
The day program that I was in was very intensive. It was like, you know, how to prepare a resume, how to cook for yourself, how to clean, some of those kind of things. And like I mentioned, I was a very high functioning alcoholic. I ran kitchens as a boozer, right? So that didn't work for me. So I just went to as many meetings as I could.
Okay.
And met some cool people, and met some people that did and said the same stuff that I said and did. You know, people who don't have addictions can listen to your words, and they can empathize, and they can try and understand, but you don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand every action of your day being predetermined by one thing: making sure you have enough to get through the day.
Right.
You know, we would leave vacations early and drive off of the highway into these small towns so I could pick up liquor because I knew we wouldn't make the liquor store at home.
It's really interesting. Like, I mean, and we plan our lives around getting that next drink or fix or whatever it may be. And I think just to highlight one of those points that you had mentioned there, like the piece of relatability from one alcoholic or addict to another is huge, right? And I said this in other podcasts, and I say this almost on a daily basis when speaking with people, that one addict speaking to another, we speak the same language, and we understand each other on an emotional level like none other. You know, and our experiences are all different, but the emotions that we go through are almost identical, and we can relate to the emotions, maybe not the things. Like if people talk about, you know, homelessness, prison time, this, that, the other, that some people may say, no, I wasn't there. There. If they talk about the emotions that they felt like when they were in these places, on the streets or in prison, we've all felt that.
Yeah, man.
And it's up here that we feel it, right?
There were three guys that really stood out in my early days going to like AA. One guy's name was Peter. This old cat with this big old handlebar mustache. I got right into him. I was like, look at that thing, right?
Yeah.
And he was just so kind and so like soft spoken. You know what I mean? My experience with big boozers, drug addicts, alcoholics were these certain type of dudes, right? And here's this guy who's just a guy, and he was so welcoming and so kind, and just, you do whatever you need to do. You be whoever you need to be. And when you come into this room, if you need me, I'm here. And then there was an open speaker. He was an indigenous guy, and he spoke about some of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Like, I can't, and I think D. Hart mentioned it the other day, like, if you heard my story, you'd be okay with the things I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised, shocked, or angry about any of the things you did. But it was the emotions he was talking about. And I went, wow, we went through the exact same stuff, but not even close.
Yeah. But you did. The details are different, but the emotions are the same.
He got me. He understood me, right?
Yes.
Whereas you can talk about it with normies, I call them, normal people,
sure,
all day long, and they want to be on your side and they want to get it, but they go, why don't you just not do it? Oh, okay, cool. I'll just not do it. I'll just not do it.
Right.
I can get addicted to anything. I cannot go to sleep now without 2 chocolate chip cookies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of finding something to get hooked on that ain't going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like you work out like a madman, right?
I try, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I don't want to speak out of school again, I'm sure that has something to do with your addictive personality, right? You have to find something. You have to find something to supplement that dopamine, to supplement that feeling, right?
Yes.
And I'm noticing that in myself now. If I'm not constantly busy, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Because I got to keep this guy moving. He gets bored. He gets distracted.
Absolutely. I could totally relate to that. And I mean, that's a thing for all of us. I think we need to find our things in recovery that, I don't want to say that we can get addicted to, but the things that we can dive headfirst into and say, this is me now. And this is, this is a healthy outlet for me. If I'm speaking for myself in terms of like training or fighting or whatever, like sometimes it hurts. Sometimes I get beat really bad, or sometimes, I'm walking around, like I'm broken for the next 3 days, but it's brought me something, and it's part of who I am today, and I love it, and that's what keeps me going back.
I guess it's the outcome, right?
Yeah, the outcome for sure.
Yeah, you get hurt a little bit, and all the things you just mentioned, but at the end of it, you're better for it instead of
for sure
so much worse and also poor.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, I like to dress. I call it dressing fresh now, right? I like to invest some time into what I'm wearing. It costs less than liquor, and it will not kill me. So it may be a little bit unnecessary, but it's something that's just mine. You know what I mean? It's for sure. Me. It's something that makes me happy, that I don't have to involve other people, and it's not a family thing. It's a Josh thing. And I think that's important for people, especially, I mean, I don't want to say especially for addicts, but for me, based on as I look back, as I get older and I learn more and I know what to look at from my past, that are potential traumas or issues that I never thought about as a kid. I thought this is just what childhood is, right?
Yeah.
I need something that's just mine. I grew up in a house with 3 siblings, and at one point 4 step siblings and 4 adults.
Right.
So there was 12 of us in a house at some point. So we didn't have a lot of space for ourselves, and we spent all of our time out, not at home, because there wasn't room for all of us. So now as an adult, I need something that's mine, that I can do the way I want, that I can lose myself in, that I don't have to change to fit other people in.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that it does so much. It gives you back so much, and you're exercising your creative sort of juices that you've got in for yourself with fashion or anything like that. It really, like you said, it's our own thing that we have for ourselves that's fulfilling, and it's in recovery. It's part of our identity, right? And it makes us happy, and we need those things. We need those little things that some people may say are selfish or whatever, but they get us through the day, and they make us smile. I mean, like for myself, I know if I don't do something active every day, I'm a different person.
Exactly.
And I want that.
that's why I would argue that it's not selfish. Do you know, like, how much of a better husband, father, friend, son, like, community member I am when I get to invest a little bit of time into myself? You know what I mean? Whether it's a haircut or sparring or a tattoo, whatever it is. If I can take a little bit of time to do something that has value to me, it makes me feel like I have value, right? Like, people care enough about me to let me have time to do that. And then I want to push the love back out. I always say to my wife, like, who's married to a queen is a king, right? So if I treat you like a queen, by definition, you will likely treat me like a king.
Yeah.
Now, those are, like, you know, misogynistic, sexist, like, roles to have, right? King and queen. I don't mean that in terms of man and woman. I mean that in terms of your person. Just keep trying to treat your people as good as you can, and it should come back.
It should.
Don't expect it to. Don't get upset when it doesn't, right? That's not why we're kind.
Yes.
But the more kindness you push out, the more it's going to come back, and that's
for sure. And to that point, just what you said, like, you know, we're being kind with no expectation. We're being kind because we know it's the right thing to do. It makes us feel good, no matter if it comes back or not, right? We feel good, and I think that's a big thing. It's been a big thing in my life. I've had to learn that, like, sometimes you do things for other people, and there's not a checks and balances type of thing here, where it's like, okay, well, I did this thing, now they have to do this to make it even. It's like, sure, it would be nice every once in a while, but it made me feel good to do that thing, and I don't expect anything in return. And that's selflessness.
It does, however, take me quite a bit of reflection to remind myself of that, because we're still people, right? We still have, like, little Josh is still inside me. He goes, oh, I did that thing and they didn't do that thing for me. So I do have to remind myself that that's not why you did the kind thing, right?
Yeah.
And once I can remember, then it doesn't matter anymore. But every once in a while, I still feel like that little boy, that little, like, you know, looking for the love. I did a nice thing for you. You should do something back. You should understand how nice it was. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, definitely. And so speaking about that, you know, I wanted to talk about, you know, your clothing line now. So, like, you're in recovery. It's been almost 8 years. We're both wearing the same shirt, not planned at all, but this is your clothing. It is, yeah. So Sober Truth Apparel. What made you start that, and what's kind of the mission behind that?
Sure. I mean, I appreciate you bringing that up, Chris. I mean, we certainly don't have to chat about it, but Sober Truth. It was started about a year-ish ago. I was the general manager of a corporate restaurant here in the Niagara region, and honestly, I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. You know, it's a hard world out there, and depending on what you do for a living, COVID may have made it exponentially harder. And basically what I found was that I was no longer running a restaurant. I was a counselor for my staff. I had a number of staff that were in crisis and were coming to me every day, and not about work, but about life. And I quickly realized that I cared more about the people that worked there than the actual financial success of the restaurant. And which is not a good place for someone who's in charge of $4 million to be. Yeah, now, I certainly wasn't phoning anything in. I was giving it everything I had. But, you know, my wife had been home with the kids for 5 years now, 2.5 of it in COVID. And she was struggling. She didn't want to be doing that anymore. And I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. And one day I came home and she was in shambles from a hard day. And so was I. Yeah. And we both kind of looked at each other and were like, what are we doing? You know? Right. Like, why are we worked so hard to come through, you know, addiction and death after death after death, and most of them being sudden and traumatic, not like old age. Right. Why are we paying bills? What are we doing? We promised each other that all we would do is, you know, within the confines of being responsible people, like, search for happiness. So I quit my gig. I went in the next day. I said, listen, man, I'm very sorry, and I appreciate the opportunity. And you're an awesome guy and all that stuff, but, like, my family needs me. I can't be here anymore. And then for a few weeks, few months, we chatted about what it is that would make us happy. And ultimately we realized that, I mean, we're going to have to go back to work. This isn't an option in a modern world. You can't just not work. But is there something that we can have that's for us, that, you know, encompasses the things that we enjoy doing in our everyday life anyway? And one of the things that we decided was, like, one of my favorite things to do is go treasure hunting for vintage clothing. Yeah. And old, like, busted up antiques, old tools, you know, stuff that you're like, I'm going to fix that, and then it goes in a pile.
Okay.
But clothes doesn't go in a pile. They do not go in a pile. So we thought about that. We'll do some vintage selling. And then we thought, but we'd also like something that portrays, like, our style specifically, the things we love. So tattoos, vintage, music, that kind of stuff. And that came up with Sober Truth. I thought of the name for it, and she was like, I love it. Is it about sobriety? It's not really. Like, it happens to have sober in it, but for me, it's about happiness. You know what I mean? My sober truth is I got to stay off the liquor. Yeah. I can't have happiness in my life if I'm boozing. It's just not an option, because I can't stop. If I get on the train, I'm going to drink every day until I pass out and then wake up and do it again. I mean, your truth might be travel, you know? Your truth might be pushing yourself to the physical limits, whether it be through Muay Thai or rock climbing. You know, your truth might be whatever it is. Mine happens to be sobriety. And that was it. And honestly, it was inspired by a number of things, one of them being a young fellow by the name of Colin. He's an artist here in the Niagara region. He runs a running crew, and he makes these really cool feathered lapel pins. Yeah,
he's a great guy.
He's a super nice guy, and his deal was, I do this so that I can meet cool, nice people and you know, be kind with them. And I went, if that's a job you can have, right? Yeah. Just pushing out kindness and meeting kind people, then why not? So we kind of we started a little thing, and it's been going okay. And it's, again, just that. It's meeting cool people. You know what I mean? Yeah. People that have the same interests as I do. It's the same thing as sobriety. It's people who think like me, who think things are cool like me, or find the same things cool that I do, you know?
Yeah, you build your community and your network around the things that are of interest to you and that you're passionate about, and I love that.
And then it doesn't get tired, right?
Exactly. It's always a passion, so you're always driven to do it. So I wanted to ask you, just because I don't know, like, who makes the designs? Because they're very cool. Like, they're almost like tattoo inspired.
Originally, my wife had started doing them because she does she does communications for work. Like right now, she generally works for nonprofits historically. Okay. She's worked for Ronald McDonald House Hamilton. She's on the board for the Sexual Assault Center in St. Catharines, and she works for Fax Niagara now. So she had done a couple, but she, unlike me, is a perfectionist, and everything needs to be perfect. And she wasn't happy with it. So we found this fella out of Australia who runs a company called Ink and Elbow Grease, and his name is Cal. And he did us up a whole branding package. So all the designs you see for the Truth brand, he developed and he drew. We did a lot of brainstorming sessions. Really smart guy. And the way he does it really, really worked for us. Like, he sent us a questionnaire with some really random and out there kinds of questions, like pick an animal, doing an activity, in a setting. Okay. And we did. And he took those and turned it into something. And the second he brought him back, I was blown away.
Yeah. I love him. I think it's great. And I think, you know, knowing what I know of you, it's very representative of you and your style and your, you know, now I can say your you know, your personality as well, right? It really does bring out, and I don't know your wife, but I imagine the same for her, right? Like, it's
my wife's like yours, man. To put up with someone like me, you got to imagine she's pretty dope.
For sure.
Yeah.
I bet.
Because I ain't easy.
That's amazing. Yeah. None of us are.
And I mean, it's all small business for me too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I love going to the tattoo shop. Our buddy Jake, who makes the hats. I mean, from Hard Luck Hat Co.
Yeah.
It's not just a hat, right? It's
Yeah.
a guy with a family and a dream who has a job doing really good things in the community,
Yes.
who wants to spread his creativity out in the world. So when I put that hat on, I don't feel like I'm keeping the sun off. I feel like I'm wearing something special, you know?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that helps me in my sobriety is all these little tokens I wear and have and do, right? They make me think of people. They make me think of good people, kindness, love, other people's struggles, other people's successes. And I think that's really important. Anyone can go to Walmart,
right?
And you can do your own groceries and pack your own stuff, and then they have the balls to ask you how they did today. You didn't do anything. I work here now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that though. You know, and I think it's great that that much thought goes into the things that you're kind of donning yourself with, and that you're really like cloaking yourself with love and happiness.
Exactly.
And community.
Exactly.
And that to me, I mean, it's really interesting because I've never thought about it that way, and I love that. I love that idea. It's great.
That's something I've found myself doing a lot since sobriety, is assigning emotional value to inanimate objects. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll take the shirt from Bond Street tattoo that I have, right? I put that on. Not only do people regularly go, "Oh, that's a dope shirt," right?
Yeah.
Where can I get a shirt like that? But it gives me an opportunity to talk about, well, I met this really cool person, and she happens to be an amazing artist, so I got a tattoo by her. Turns out her and her husband run a recovery program. Her husband does this. Oh, speaking of recovery, this, right? And it becomes this whole community of exactly what you said, like a conversation about love and people who care. So if you need something, this T-shirt you can get here, and you can talk to them about that, and then they'll turn you on to a guy who makes dope hats.
Yeah,
I didn't know about Jake until I was sitting in Joe's chair, and now he's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah,
he's actually making a hat for. He's making a hat for Truth.
Oh, is he really?
He's doing a little collab thing. So like
that's amazing.
The hat that's on the back of the shirt you're wearing now, he's working on that.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
I just haven't decided if I'm going to sell it or wear it.
Do both.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate it the same way that you do. And I love that much thought goes into the project and your life. Finally, I just want to ask, like, what do you do on a daily basis today? We talked a lot about how you got sober and what kind of drives you in sobriety. Do you have a routine that kind of keeps you in recovery?
So I late in life here, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, I finally got diagnosed with ADHD. I've always assumed I had it. I used to tell my mom that in school, and she went, "Nah, concentrate harder." So I find it difficult to stick to a routine. And I also find it difficult, like I have constant guilt that I'm not accomplishing as much as I should. Now, this is self-imposed guilt. My wife never says, "Oh, I wish you had done this," right? So for me, sobriety, staying off the liquor at this point, I don't view it as much of an issue, but what I do is I talk about it constantly. I talk about my alcoholism and my mental health trials and triumphs regularly.
Right.
As to people who I work with, to people, at the school there with my kids, I pick them up and they go, I'm not just going, "I'm an alcoholic," but I do keep it current in my conversation to keep me honest, because I'm really worried that if I stop talking about it, it's going to become too easy, right? And my job historically is working in restaurants. Most recently was working behind a bar. So I put it out there very quickly so that people know that if you see old JD going for a drinky, it's not supposed to happen, right?
Right. It's
And
your way of being accountable to yourself, right? You're building accountability partners everywhere you go by talking about this and being open and honest.
And you'd be amazed, right? Because folks like you and people like us at large talk about it a lot now.
Yeah, we do.
It's not like it was when I started in restaurants 20 years ago, where you don't drink, like nothing, right? And it was almost like, ew.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, dude, come on, do one, right? Now, people that you barely even know are on your side.
Yeah.
Right? I told someone on my first shift I don't drink, and they went, okay, cool. If I ever see you catching a drink, man, we're going to have problems. I don't know you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You ain't the boss of me, but now I'm accountable because they know that the boss there is a good pal of mine.
Yeah.
And they'll rat me out real quick.
Yeah.
which will not end well for anyone. So it's amazing to see that people are aware of these things being actual issues, aware enough to want to help people with it and to back people up for it. You know, I used to, not right after sobriety, but shortly after sobriety, when I was feeling a little bit more comfortable, and me and my wife would go out, I would order a Virgin Caesar, right? Which I never drank when I was boozing, but it made me feel like I was not going to have eyeballs on me, right? Like you're out at a bar having a coffee, what's the matter with you, right?
Yeah.
Now I don't care because other people don't care.
And it's funny because we realize that they don't care and that our drinking or not drinking, our not drinking is generally received much more openly and kindly than our drinking ever was.
Much more favorably,
right? And I can really relate to that because I had that for a long time too. It's like, I'll just get a soda water with lime so it'll look like a drink. And then I started realizing, like, whether I like that to drink or not, why am I doing that to appease other people to either avoid the questions for the few times that I'm in a bar, like maybe I'm going to see a friend's band play or something like that, it doesn't matter. And I can have a bottle of water and be like completely fine. And I actually notice more when I'm in a licensed establishment drinking a bottle of water. I notice everybody that has another bottle of water too. And I'm like, wow, I'm really not alone here. Yeah. Maybe like these people are in recovery. But then you see all the blue. I've never seen that car
before, and then there they are. Yeah.
Sure. And I think that's really important too to realize, like, in recovery, that what our perception of what other people think of us is so askew, right? Like people don't care as much as we would like to think that they do.
Brother, I spend so much time in my head, like overanalyzing everything, and an hour will go by and I go, I'm the only one doing this. Like about this situation. I'm sure other people are overanalyzing theirs as well, but no one noticed what I noticed, you know?
Yes. For sure.
Yeah. And it's wild to think that, again, we're speaking gender norms and, stereotypes. Like, look at you, look at me, right? We don't look like someone who's going to get messed with, right? But here we are, afraid that we're going to get made fun of for not having a drink. Can you imagine what the disenfranchised amount of people in the world, what they go through? I'm a nearly 40-year-old, 225-pound man who only just started painting his nails because he was worried what other people would think. Now imagine some poor kid in high school who this is really who they are.
Yes.
And so props and strength to all the people out there who continue to be who they are, because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
I'm trying to figure out who it is I am and if he'll be accepted by society.
Right. So, Josh, if people want to reach out or check out the clothing brand, how can people find you?
So my Instagram handle is DopeFitsDustyBarnes, and our Instagram for Sober Truth is Sober Truth Apparel. I do basically on my personal account, just the clothes I'm wearing, and every once in a while I try and be a little bit inspirational Say something that has value rather than just, here are the pants I'm wearing. For example, Chris, did you know that you are 1 in 400 trillion?
I did not.
Yeah, the chances of that sperm and that egg creating Chris is 1 in 400 trillion, which means that in the history of time, there will likely never be another one of you. So you're very special, and your addition to my life has value.
Thank you, brother, and you as well, man. I really want to thank you for coming out and being so open and honest and giving of yourself and your story. It's a pleasure to finally have a face-to-face, and hopefully we can do this without a screen sometime very soon. We'll have to get out and maybe get the families together or something like that. Yeah, for sure. That's what we got to do.
Yeah. If you ever need anything else, let me know. Right? We unpacked some, but your boy has got a deep, dark bad boy up here. So.
Okay, as we all do. Amazing, man. Well, thank you so much, and you have yourself an amazing day.
Keep doing awesome stuff, Chris. Thanks.